All right, good morning, you guys. I am back again. Uh, I kind of wanted to get on here and one second. Yeah, so I kind of want to get on here today and talk about an article that I read, right? And I think I don't know, it's just something that I just kind of thought about, which is kind of crazy because um this article is actually talking about Michelangelo's statue, David. You know the popular statue with the man who's in nude, and it's like a I don't know, a depiction on like David and Goliath. And so there was an article on that, and the crazy thing about it is I just watched a video last night on like the Renaissance period, like the dark parts of Renaissance art, and they talked about some of Michelangelo's work and stuff. So yeah, like I just kind of you know the algorithm is algorithming, I guess. Some cookies are hidden, I guess. But anyway, I read the article and basically it talked about how the museum that owns it is fighting back against improper use of the piece, right? Because they for them they it's an issue because they there are, I guess, other people, who are trying to capitalize off of this nude image, or the image in itself. And typically, it's like used in they show like images of it being put in different colors. There's like this neon pop, pop art, type of designs. Some of them where they just like show like his butt or his genitalia area and stuff like that. So the person from the museum stated that um, she believes that this piece, the improper use, like the ways that it's being used in this way, is diminishing the intention of what the piece is, right? And so, like, I guess is their way of combating it being lost in translation. Now I can see, where they're coming from, because uh, I do think that there is a fine line between uh, um, appropriation and infatuation, or even inspiration, and I do think that, just for usually when things are preserved and, you start understanding like the intentions behind it, like, I think that's also very important to kind of like keep in mind, right? Because again, over time, when new generations come in, and things like that, and the world changes, data often gets lost in translation, and some of that data also includes art, right? So I understand it, but at the same time, there were just a few things that i I thought were a little bit critical. So like for one, um she did mention that the thing about this piece is that it is, elegance, and it's pure, and and it has dignity and stuff like that. And when it's used in that context, where it shows like the buttocks or a lot of other stuff, it kind of spoils that. And then she also mentioned that it's also made in plastic and all this other stuff. So I don't know. I feel like some of it is a little surface level. Again, I understand, I'm not, saying that it could be taken out of context, but I feel like when it's saying like, oh, well, it's made in plastic and all that, like, I kind of feel like, in a way, yeah, like if it's made, cheaply, there's not much value, but at the same time, the reason why somebody buys, stuff like that is because it is, it may be something that's invaluable to you, because of it's not the original, and it's not in the right context, or it's not, or in the right medium or whatever. But it could be something completely different to another person, and yeah, like I don't know, like I just kind of feel like creativity. I don't know how much there should be rules around the use of creative freedom or creative expression, and my thing is to talk about it being pure and having like the sophistication and stuff like that. That's where that I mean, I don't know. For me, I feel like that's really a decision that was made by the masses, right? But because it is still art, I still think that it is up for interpretation. Like the whole pure thing is that it is what it is. There's nothing contaminating it and everything. So I can understand that, but can you really say that it is pure when you know what its intention is, right? And I don't know, like I know of Michelangelo's work, but I don't follow his history. I don't know his quotes. And I could be wrong. I did try to look it up a little bit, but I could be wrong. But I've never really seen any comments that Michelangelo made about what exactly this piece means, right? Because to the masses, it's considered as a form of Christian art. Christianity is a sign of, I guess, stoicism, but also purity and innocence, and confidence. It's a lot of things, but and then also, with this purity is, that also contributes to why it's in the nude, right? There's nothing there. It's just David. And that's what, one of the things that Michelangelo did quote was that, when David was made, it was made within what he envisioned, and all he did was just carve the parts of him that wasn't David. And I feel like if, because that came directly from Michelangelo, um, I would say that it's fair, for people to use said image because it is used in the way it's intended, right? It's him in his purity. Now, the other thing that I would say is with the whole pop art thing and, maybe cutting off like parts of it, using the head or something like that for monetary gain. I do think that it's a little bit complex because on the one hand, I can understand that people will often like use something for their own gain without understanding like the appreciation behind it or the value behind it. So for example, I think there were some places or businesses that used the nude image to push a sexual context. Like they'll use it for like say a lingerie shop or something like that, or and just things like that. So I can see how like they don't want that image to be turned as something that's sexualized or commercialized, or it's into some sort of like especially with it being related to Christianity. And I can understand that. But again, it's complex because the whole intention of when David was created was because it was made within Michelangelo's vision, and I feel like if people are using that with the same intentions within their own vision, can you really say that it's unfair? I do think that it's complex. I do think that there should be a level of protection around somebody's IP. But that was the other thing that they talked about too, because it already has protection under the government, is considered public domain, and when things are public domain, it is really free of use, But again, if it is free of use, people do have the right, to use it. But yeah, like, I would say like long term, how does this fit, over time? Because we know like now, like there's things just coming up, that were said to be wrong or bad or, not good. And but when it was originally made, it was something that was seen as good, or it was something that was sacred. But the image changed over time. And if it's used, the way it's being promoted right now to the masses, that very thing could happen in the future. So, it's something to consider. The other part about it is that also trickles down to some of the other art pieces that they had. I believe it's in Italy. Anyone who knows Italy knows that Italy has classic architecture, classic art, the cathedrals and all this other stuff. So it's a lot of preservation in there, and there was talk about like, okay, well, if that the images of these like landmarks and artifacts um, are no longer commercialized, then that could also impact the economy, because it is one of the tourist places too, and there's a lot of money that circulates, with everything, not just David, but just some of the other arts and stuff. So yeah, it's just a lot to think about. But I think the main thing is, I'm curious, especially now. In this period, I feel like we're now going into another Renaissance boom, like another Renaissance period, especially with technology, digital art, AI, generative, AI, and not even just like when it comes to like just drawing, but just even just the way it's creatively, technology is like embedded into creativity. Uh, it's there's going to be another Renaissance period of like arts of the arts, not just drawing, but even like music and dance and acting. Like there's going to be different things that's going to come up. But yeah, so it's just something that I kind of thought about, because there is this big push now on what's happening with the IP of these artists whose work is being used in generative AI, and in how that, like, how does that fit within the story of like Michelangelo's David, and how the original source should have some protection, but then if it does have some protection, does that contradict what freedom is in terms of art, in terms of creativity? So I don't really have a side in this, honestly, because I can understand both perspectives. Me personally, I am a lover of like classical art and architecture, and especially like the ancient stuff. Like I notice like the further back we go in history, the more intricate it becomes, but the more intentional it is as well. And that's what I love about it. So, like I can see like how like, for people who know, like, or, for people who know this, like, I can see how it raises concern, because the new people who come in, they look at this, they're looking at it completely different, and I mean, we see that now, like even like when it comes to music, how there are artists that will cover, older songs. Like it happens a lot, like in R&B. How like in like the '90s and the early 2000s, there were a lot of covers from like music from like the '70s and '80s and stuff like that. But when it was done, tastefully. It was still in their own quote unquote purity, but it was still um but it still maintained its essence, in a way. But and then there were also some, that were also covered, but they weren't done tastefully, and because it strayed so far from what it was intended, um it didn't hit. So I don't know, but again, it's free will. People have it, and it really is up for interpretation. There, it even though this piece is centered around Christianity and all this other stuff, I don't even know if Michelangelo even stated that this was something to be a Christian, piece, or I don't know if he stated that this is something that is supposed to be, you know, uh, not sexual, because I mean, sexuality in itself can have its own sense of purity, in it, and that's why. And for some people, they might have, got been drawn to the new factor of it, because when you're naked, you don't have anything. It's just yourself, So I think there's some sort of like symbolism in that, but it's again, it's up for interpretation. It's all perception, But I'm just curious to see how this is going to play out in the future, because one of the things that I am concerned about is how creativity becomes governed, especially with technology on the rise. And when the creativity becomes governed or contained or controlled, I do think that there's a possibility where we might not reach our full potential, you know, because it's so controlled. It's really supposed to have some sort of freedom. It's supposed to defy the rules. It's supposed to break the rules, So how does that work out long term? So Yeah, so that's just some of the things that I had in my mind. And I don't know, just something to think about. So until next time.